What's up guys, my name's Brandon and this is the new 2025 M3 iPad Air. So we have the 11-inch model and the 13-inch model, and in this video we're going to be unboxing both of these. We're going to be comparing them, talking about the performance compared to M2, and of course talking about the size difference in the 11-inch and 13-inch and which one you should buy. Okay, so let's start with the 11-inch model, and you can see here from the box we did get this in the base model configuration. So that is 128 gigs of storage. That is double what the M1 iPad Air had, which was 64 gigs, but of course this is the same as the M2 iPad Air from last year. Now this is in the Starlight color, and I did get the 13-inch in the blue color, but this iPad Air also comes in purple and space gray as well. So this starts at $599 for the 11-inch and $799 for the 13-inch. Now you can go up to 1 terabyte for $1099 and $1299 respectively. And of course both of these are the Wi-Fi only models as well, but you can add cellular with 5G for an additional $150, and that will be eSIM only. So let's go ahead and unbox this 11-inch iPad Air using these pull tabs as always right here. And this iPad Air should look identical to last year's iPad Air, but I will compare them just to be sure. So here we go. This is the Starlight color. Also inside of the box we do have our pamphlet here, our paperwork. We do not get Apple stickers, just our getting started guide and other things. And then we do have our braided USB-C to USB-C cable, and then we do have our power block here as well. Let's go ahead and take off the paper on the back. This is the Starlight color. You can see it's a very silver like color. So this is what it looks like, and I actually noticed a difference right away. We do not have the iPad Air text on the back. So let me bring over the M2 iPad Air from last year, and you can see that we had the iPad Air text at the bottom, but we do not have that here on the new M3 iPad Air. So a minor difference there in the design. We also don't have all the little text at the bottom. So you can see before we had all the regulatory text down there, but now it's just super clean and we don't have iPad Air or that regulatory text. So minor change there. I'm not really sure why Apple did that. You know, I think it was cool to have iPad Air on the back, but this does look really clean now. Now, as far as the weight goes, the 11-inch model weighs 1.01 pounds, so it is slightly lighter than the M2 model, but I could tell you right now from holding them both in the hands, it's really hard to tell a difference. I can feel it just because I know, the numbers, but if you didn't know the numbers, you probably would not be able to tell a difference in the weight. Now, the 13-inch model is 1 gram lighter than the 13-inch model of last year, but again, that's not really going to be able to be something you could actually tell in the real world. And then as far as the thickness goes, we have the same thickness for both the 11-inch and the 13-inch models. That is 6.1 millimeters, and you can see them both side by side right here. Everything else on the outside of the iPad Air is going to be exactly the same as what we saw last year with the M2 model, and that does include the 12 megapixel wide camera in the back and also the 12 megapixel ultra wide front-facing camera. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and boot up the 11-inch model while we unbox the 13-inch iPad Air. So I did get this in the blue color. Again, it's most likely going to look exactly the same as last year's blue model, which looks like this, but we could see a minor difference. We'll have to wait and see. So anyways, this is also the base configuration, 128 gigabytes. Let's go ahead and pull these tabs. And here is the 13-inch model. So we have the paper over top of it right here as usual. And man, I can always tell a big difference when I pick up the 13-inch versus the 11-inch. You think it's only 2 inches, so it's not going to be a big difference, but it is a massive difference when you actually hold these in the hand. So inside the box, we have the same that we got in the 11-inch model, of course. So let's go ahead and take off the paper here for the 13-inch iPad Air. I love this blue color. It really looks silver when it's like in direct light, but you can see the blue when it's, darker lighting or not as direct light on the iPad. So there we go. That is the blue color. Let's see if it's actually any different. Okay, so it does not appear to be any different from last year's M2 iPad Air. So the blue color is the same. I would assume that every color is the same, exact same as last year in terms of the shade. Okay, so let's go ahead and boot up the 13-inch model as well, because I want to talk a bit more about this iPad Air. So we do have the M3 chip now in the iPad Air. So that's going to be 2 times faster than the M1 Air and 3.5 times faster than the iPad Air with A14. We do also have the enhanced GPU architecture, so that's going to include things like dynamic caching, mesh shading, and hardware accelerated ray tracing, which is going to be great for gaming and anything that's related to the GPU. So the GPU performance is going to be 4 times faster compared to the M1 iPad Air. That's a big difference. Now we do also have the AV1 video decode, which is going to be great for video streaming. It's going to be more efficient and, potentially get you higher quality video streaming as well. So let's go ahead and go through this setup process here. So anyways, we have the appearance here first off. So if you want to have your appearance be medium, you could do that, or large. I'm going to stick with the default for both. And now we have our quick start where we can transfer our data over from another device if it is nearby. I do have my M2 iPad Air over here nearby, so I am going to transfer over the data onto the M3 11-inch model, and we'll start the 13-inch model up as a new device. So we went ahead and scanned that code on the new iPad. So we're going to get started right here, and we're going to transfer everything over. Now we are getting prompted for a software update. I'm going to go ahead and update later just because I am curious to see what version we are on by default. But anyways, we do have our data and privacy right here, and then we have set up iPad, and now we need to do Touch ID. So we're going to do that for both devices. I like using my index finger right here. So we're going to continue, and we're just going to use our index finger. You can use multiple fingers if you would like to, like your index finger on each hand. That can be handy. Or, if you hold it like this, you might want to do your left index finger as well. So I like doing both of my hands index finger on both my left and my right. So we'll go ahead and do that. You could also add another fingerprint later on after you already set up your device as well. So you don't need to do both right away. But of course you can if you want to, if you're not in a hurry to get through the setup process. But I am, so we're going to do that. And of course we are transferring our data over from our other iPad Air over here. It says iPad Pro, I'm not, just because I didn't name it, but we're going to continue, and it's going to transfer over all of that new data. Meanwhile, on the 13-inch model, we are again setting up as new. So we're going to go ahead and just run through all this really quickly. We have our Apple Intelligence, we have our Siri right here. We also have our software update, so it is going to need to go ahead and update to 18.3.2. Now notice how the size is small. So it says 419 megabytes. That tells me that this iPad came pre-installed with iOS 18.3. Otherwise, that size would be a lot larger. So we're going to see if the 13-inch model also came with 18.3 installed. So we're going to go ahead and update to the latest at the time of recording, 18.3.2 here. Okay, so while we're waiting on these things to set up, we're going to go ahead and unbox the new Magic Keyboard. So this new Magic Keyboard is different than what we saw last year. So let's go ahead and unbox this, and I'll show you what's new. You can see on the back of the box right here, it does also say down here what is included, and it says iPad Air 13-inch. And so this is for the 13-inch model, not the 11-inch model. So let's go ahead and unbox this. I did get this in white. So here is the Magic Keyboard, and this thing comes just like the iPad does with the paper over top of it. So let's go ahead and take this off. Again, I did get this in the white color. This is the cleanest you will ever see it. This thing gets so dirty, it drives me crazy. The black one does as well, but you can really see it on the white. So let's go ahead and take that off. We have our little paperwork right here, and you can see inside we just have our getting started guide and everything like that. But this is the Magic Keyboard. So there are a few changes here that are noteworthy. So first off, we do have a larger trackpad now. So this trackpad down here is just a little bit larger than it was on the previous Magic Keyboard. Now we do also have a 14 key function row right here, and you'll notice that the mute key right here has a new design. So it now has a slash through the speaker right there for mute. So that's the same that we saw on the new MacBook Air. The new M4 MacBook Air has that same change to the mute glyph icon. Oh, and we also have the aluminum hinge right here as well. So it's a little bit higher quality than what we saw previously. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stick on the iPad Air 13-inch onto the new Magic Keyboard, and there we go. This feels right at home for the 13-inch model. I'm just a big fan of the Magic Keyboard. I know it's expensive, but it's a borderline must-have, in my opinion, for the 13-inch model specifically. I like it in general, no matter the size, but it just works so well with the 13-inch. That way you don't have to hold up that heavy thing so long, and of course it feels great with the keyboard. It really makes it feel more like a Mac. Anyways, getting back to the setup here, you can see we do have our Apple Intelligence splash screen right here telling us about the new Apple Intelligence feature. So we'll go ahead and continue on that. And now we get our prompt for Siri. I'm just going to go ahead and continue on that. We can do speak to Siri. We also have type to Siri right there, which I use more than speak to Siri these days. And we'll go ahead and set up this part later. We're going to not share our audio recordings. Let's go ahead and get started. And there we go. We are now on the new iPad Air. So we are in dark mode for some reason. And let's go ahead and check out in our settings. Let's go into our settings. I want to see what version we came pre-installed on. So I'm going to change this to light mode just because it looks better on video. So let's go ahead and see what version this came pre-installed with. So this also came with version 18.3, just like the 11-inch model did. Okay, so I'm going to start downloading my benchmarking tool so we can compare the M3 to the M2. But before that, I do want to talk about some other specs that I didn't mention yet. So the battery life is the same 10 hours of web browsing as we saw last year and on previous models. And then we do also have Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3 support. Also, just like the M2, we have dual mics and a landscape stereo speaker setup. Now the 13-inch model is going to sound better in terms of sound quality. It's going to have more bass than the 11-inch model, but it's the same as last year. Okay, so we're going to test these speakers on the 11-inch and the 13-inch iPad Air. But before we do that, I want to show you that you could see a difference here in the screen real estate and specifically YouTube with the whole interface. So you can see the tabs for home, video, shorts, playlists, all that, and you can see how it compares to the 11-inch model. So you'll notice that in certain applications you get a different layout and it's just more spacious on the 13-inch, of course. Okay, so let's compare the speakers now, and we're going to start with the 11-inch. Now we do also have support for the Apple Pencil Pro. As you can see right there, it shows us some of the features that you get with Apple Pencil Pro, like squeeze, switch tools with a gesture, scribble, and easily capture screenshots. So you can try squeeze right there, and you have scribble as well. So Apple Pencil Pro is a great companion to the iPad Air and the iPad Pro. I really like using that. It's really also kind of a must-have accessory when you have the Magic Keyboard, especially if you're somebody who does a lot of drawing or any type of art on your iPad. Okay, so we have the M2 iPad Air right here and the M3 iPad Air over here on the right. So we're gonna run a Geekbench 6 test to see how these scores compare. Okay, so we finished up the Geekbench test and I got this really weird error on the new M3 iPad Air. So it says something about being invalid due to issues with the timers on the system. Regardless, you can see the scores here. Single core is a good bit higher than what we saw on the M2. So 2619 versus 2978. And then the multi-core is much smaller of an improvement. So 9990 versus 10021 on M3. And then we're also going to do a 3D Mark Steel Nomad light test here on both of these as well and see how they compare to one another. And for this test, we scored a 2184 on the M2 and a 2556 on the M3. So minor difference there as well, but you can see the overall average frame rate was about 2 frames higher, almost 3 frames higher. So 16.2 FPS versus 18.9 FPS. So looks like the M3 iPad Air will also be a little bit better for gaming. If you're somebody who does more gaming, then you might see an improvement here as well. Now we're also doing a Speedometer 3 web browsing test. So we're going to see if that M3 potentially does better with web browsing than M2. Okay, so we actually do have a decent improvement here on the M3. So 34.5 versus a 30.7. So even if you're web browsing, you'll likely see an improvement in terms of just overall performance on the M3. Okay, so with all that being said, should you buy the iPad Air M3? Just my overall first impressions tell me that if you have an M1 iPad Air or anything older than M1 or even an older base model iPad, then this is a great choice. Now, I have to say that the price of the M2 iPad Air will likely be reduced either now or at some point in the near future. So I'd probably go for the M2 iPad Air over the M3 just because they're going to be very similar. Like, yes, we saw some for performance improvements on the M3, but it's going to be very minor in the grand scheme of things when you're using it on a day-to-day basis. So if you want to save potentially a couple $100, I would probably go for M2 over the M3 iPad Air. But I do also have to say that the new Magic Keyboard is a nice addition, and that is something that you will get on the M3 iPad Air. So if you want to have the latest and greatest and the best of the best, then of course go ahead and get the M3 iPad Air. But if you're trying to save as much money as possible and you don't want to break the bank, then I'm just saying that M2 might be the better choice if you have an older iPad right now. Okay, so let's talk about the 11-inch versus the 13-inch iPad Air and which one you should buy. So first off, the 11-inch is going to be perfect if you do not plan on getting a Magic Keyboard, because it's just easier to pick up and hold with one hand, especially for long periods of time. That's really hard to do with the 13-inch model, so I find the 11-inch better for using an iPad like an actual iPad, like holding it up in your hand and using it. And there's still plenty of screen real estate like on the screen on the 11-inch model. It's not like you're getting a small screen versus a big screen. It's still a good amount of size to watch videos, to watch movies, to browse the web. You know, even if you're drawing with the Apple Pencil, you still have plenty of space on the 11-inch size. However, the 13-inch, of course, is going to get you more screen real estate. So if you're somebody who's really into creative applications like drawing, photo editing, or anything like that, the 13-inch size is going to be perfect because it's massive. You just have so much more real estate for your canvas. But I would also say that if you plan on getting the Magic Keyboard, if you're already set on getting the Magic Keyboard, I would definitely get the 13-inch model as well, because it's pretty tough to use the 13-inch model by just holding it. Like just holding it with one hand, it will get very tiresome after a while. So I think that you pretty much need to get the Magic Keyboard. You can also get a cheaper case as well. I'm not saying you have to get Magic Keyboard, but it's just so much better. It makes the 13-inch just feel so much more kind of like a computer, like I said earlier, like a MacBook. And also I would say that the 13-inch model is best if you're going to be somebody who does a lot of work on your iPad, if you do a lot of multitasking, or if you maybe have multiple displays set up, if you go back and forth from your computer to your iPad as part of your workflow, then of course the 13-inch will probably be better for you there as well. And I do also have to say that watching movies and watching videos will be a better experience on the 13-inch model, not just because of the bigger display, but also because it does have better speakers and more bass. So that is the M3 iPad Air in both 11-inch and the 13-inch sizes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know in a comment down below if you picked up a new iPad Air or if you plan on picking one up, and if so, which size and which color. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you did, give it a thumbs up. Also make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future iPad videos. And of course, I will have my iPad Air review coming in the next couple of weeks. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.